welcome to Long Lost Friends. I'm Elizabeth Eve King.
And I'm Andrea Goyan. Elizabeth and I used to do improv comedy together back when we were 19.
But we lost touch.
And then a couple of years ago, we found each other again and discovered
I'd become a painter, a writer, a performer, a Pilates teacher, an animal lover, and a biologist.
Hey, I'm a painter, performer, writer, Pilates teacher, animal lover, and well, okay, I'm not a biologist, but we're long lost
friends.
And we're both speculative fiction writers.
My work has appeared in MetaStellar.
MetaStellar, for those of you who don't know, is an online magazine that specializes in publishing original science fiction, horror, and fantasy. There's a link below.
Today, we are excited again to be talking with Madeleine Holly-Rosing. She's the award-winning writer-creator of the steampunk supernatural graphic novel series, Boston Metaphysical Society. It's about an ex-Pinkerton detective, a spirit photographer, and a genius scientist who battles supernatural forces in the late 1800s.
And first, before we get going, we always want to talk about your pets because Elizabeth and I are animal lovers. So can you tell us about your other dog?
My other dog is Ripley. And if you remember, there we go. That's her.
Oh, she's so cute. Is she in the water there?
No, she's just artificial turf. It's artificial turf. Yeah, we think she's a border collie pointer mix, we think. She is, she was a rescue like Bishop. And if you're a sci-fi fan, you may get the reference from Bishop and Ripley.
Yes.
But yeah, she came to us and it was interesting. About the first 5 months, she wouldn't let my husband touch her. So clearly something had happened. And then she did. And over time, probably by the end of that year, she was like all over him and loves him to pieces. She used to kind of hide in our backyard. And then when we'd open up the gate, she would sit at one gate. And then a month later, she'd sit at the other gate. And then now she just takes over the whole yard. So she's just this crazy, flighty girl, just wants to have fun dog.
How long have you had her?
About 8 years.
Nice.
We adopted them together through a foster in Lancaster, California.
Very nice.
Nice.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Are there any animals in the Boston Metaphysical Society?
Right now, no.
Oh.
No, they're not. Maybe later. I'll think about that.
You might have to bring in a ghost dog or something, huh? So I'm curious. Well, I'm curious about a couple of things. First, some of the characters are actually taken from history, correct?
That is correct. In the first 6-issue miniseries, Bell, Edison, Tesla, and Houdini are part of the storyline. And then Granville T. Woods is part of the Boston Metaphysical team. He's the genius scientist as part of the team. Samuel Hunter, who is the ex-Pinkerton, is fictional. And Caitlin O'Sullivan, who is the medium and spirit photographer, is also fictional. But as I was developing the story, I didn't want a lily white cast because it also wasn't representative of American history. And because American history includes women and people of color, and people seem to forget that. So I did find Granville in my research. He is actually from Ohio, but since I'm the writer, I brought him to Boston because, well, I can do that. The real Granville specialized in railroad switching technology. Which if you don't know anything about that basically means that he developed a way where train stations and trains could speak to each other so they didn't collide, which is really good because that means people didn't die.
Yeah.
So that's kind of important. And he sold a lot of his patents to Westinghouse and Bell and others, as he couldn't really, he had difficulty marketing it himself since he was African American. And but as you know, if you understand, your IP law, once you sell your patent, your IP, you've lost control of it. So, but the way you actually make money off of it is by licensing it. And he couldn't do that just because of, unfortunately, the color of his skin. But I had a great time bringing him into the team. I kind of see the three of them as kind of a Kirk, Spock, and McCoy thing, where Samuel is Kirk and kind of the cowboy, Caitlin is McCoy, and Granville is Spock. Not that he's emotionless, because he's not, but he's the more analytical of the three. But together, they all come from different classes. They all have different strengths and weaknesses, but together they're a very formidable team.
Wow.
And you must have done a lot of research on the 1800s Boston too, I imagine.
Yes, that research actually came from a script of mine that I wrote when I was at UCLA called Stargazer. It actually won the Sloan Fellowship. It was about a biopic about Mina Fleming, who was an astronomer at the same time in Boston, who arrived in this country penniless, pregnant, and was abandoned by her husband. She found a job as a maid at the house of the head of the Harvard Observatory, and he soon discovered her. She was an incredible, her needlepoint was like amazing, which requires attention to detail. And he hired her to work for him. And that attention to detail enabled her to discover over 10,000 stars. And eventually she did come up with her own stellar classification system. But that one's not widely used. There's another one now, which off the top of my head, I don't remember. But yeah, so I had done an extensive amount of research during that time period in Boston prior to doing this. So I came with a host of knowledge.
That's great. And now you were telling Elizabeth and I a little bit before about you're adapting. So you got to adapt this originally from a screenplay you'd written. Now you're adapting it from a graphic novel to an audiobook or novel or whatever you're calling it. But
radio drama, right? Because it has a
It's
cast and sound, music and everything, right?
Correct. I'll have to say that this particular story, The Ghost Ship, was also adapted from a TV episode of Boston Metaphysical. One of the classes I took while I was there required us to write the 5th episode in our series, meaning that if you could, that the series had legs. You already know what that means. And so I took the premise of The Ghost Ship and adapted it into an audio drama, which is different from an audio book. An audio book is just a word for word recitation of your book, and it could or could not have special effects or music. It really depends on your budget. This is a much more classic radio play style where we do have a full cast, hired 12 actors who were part of the project. We'll have special effects and original music.
That's so much fun. Radio drama is like one of my favorite things to do as a performer, because you can be anything, because they aren't. But I think it's really interesting because to me, like a graphic novel, it's much more like a movie, in that so much of it is visual. There are words, but so much is what you see, where of course audio, you don't have any visual. So it's like, do you find do you have a narrator comes in with description, or how'd you work that?
Well, I was fortunate in that the production team I hired to come on board had done their own production for 4 years called Sage and Savant. It was a steampunk sci-fi radio drama, audio drama. Eddie Louise and her husband, Chip Michael. Eddie Louise is my script editor for the Ghost Ship audio drama. And I did a lot of research on how to write one prior to doing my first drafts. And then she came on board and helped me quite a bit. It's a different way of thinking because you have to think in an auditory way as opposed to a visual way, and to convey, visuals either through sound or speech. And I do have a narrator, but she doesn't do descriptions. It's to move the plot and story and character along. And I use a narrator pretty sparsely.
So when you are actually in the process of doing the show, do the actors work separately? I mean, COVID has been a whole world of separation. Are they doing their roles separately and then cutting it together, or are they in the room together acting together?
Well, they're not physically in the room acting together. Chip Michael, who is our audio engineer, has an interesting process, which I think probably all audio dramas should do, in that, we hired everybody. Obviously I'm the producer and executive producer of all this as well. And when we got down to our, top 3 actors for the main roles, we did a Zoom meeting and then breakout rooms, and then mixed and matched the actors so they'd be playing off each other to find out who resonated with each other, who had the chemistry and everything, and particularly listening to the voices together. And then when we made the final selections, what we first did is we did a Zoom meeting run through. We went through it twice so everyone could see each other and act off of each other. And then Chip would direct and give them notes. And then we would move into Zencaster and just do one complete read through for the entire episode. And then what Chip would do was take that recording and remove, say like, Emily Snyder plays Caitlin O'Sullivan, remove her voice and send that track to her so she could listen to it and record. So she would have something to play off of as she recorded her part. And then she would submit that to him, and then he would put and he did that for everybody.
So you mentioned Zencaster?
Zencaster, yeah.
Can you tell us? I don't know what that is. I've never heard of that.
Oh, Zencaster is it's not Zoom, because they just started adding video, but a lot of podcasts use Zencaster to record.
Okay.
And it's a platform where you can, record your podcast. I think up to about, I don't remember if it has any limits on it or not, but it's a more stable and efficient way to get a quality recording. It's better for quality recording than Zoom.
So most of your actors are voiceover people who have their own booths?
Yeah, they have home studios, or I mean, quite frankly, a lot of them just constructed it in their, a closet.
Yeah.
And put it together there. But yeah, they're all professional voice actors.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Fun. And what about the music?
Chip wears many hats. He's also a composer, and he's doing the original music as well. So we're keeping this production pretty tight. The production team is just myself, Eddie Louise, and Chip.
Did he compose a theme song for you?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yes.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And are any episodes available right now, or are you just doing the first one?
Oh, actually the voice tracks for all 8 have already been laid out. But there is an excerpt on the Kickstarter homepage, and the Kickstarter link will be below. And so, yeah, you can listen to about 2.5 minutes of it. And that has the full music and special effects, and it introduces you to Samuel, Caitlin, and Granville. Yeah, it's just delightful. So yeah, we're working on finishing out the first episode, because once all the music and the first episode, once that's done, the others are going to go a lot faster because we'll have worked out a lot of bugs and opinions and what needs to be changed. But I fully anticipate all 8 episodes will probably be done by January of 2022.
Wow, that's really fast.
And then where will they be available? Will they be available for purchase? I don't.
Well, on Kickstarter, they are available for their reward tiers for download, MP3 download. There's also a really cool flash drive, which it's like a wooden oval thing, which will have an American clipper ship, like the one behind me, etched on one side, and then the title Ghost Ship on the other. So if you prefer having a flash drive and then plugging it into your computer and downloading it and then moving it into whatever device you have, that's great. We'll also have a 5-disc set if you prefer a CD. And if you're brand new to the Boston Metaphysical world, all of the books will be available as well.
So for people who miss the Kickstarter, because this will be up for a while, and where will they be able to get a hold of all these things?
Well, that's a good question. I have not decided yet. The audio drama podcasting platforms are very fluid right now. People are buying out other people and contracts are constantly changing. And I'm not going to make that decision until we get closer to delivering to our Kickstarter backers, because the Kickstarter backers get it first.
Okay, but then anyone else could go to your website perhaps and find information as it becomes available?
Absolutely, absolutely. And there will also be flash drives, and the CDs will be available to sell, for the general public at that
Okay,
point.
great. That's what I mean.
And once we get a link, once you've decided, even if it's next year, and get a link, there'll be a link somewhere here below.
Okay. Yeah, great. Yeah. No, I get that question a lot. Like people are, oh, can I see it on Audible? I'm like, well, I don't know yet. And it's just the business is really fluid, and I'm going to wait till things kind of settle down.
Yeah, it's fluid on everything. I just noticed that Ingram has started to publish and distribute books. So I think they're going to be a big competitor maybe for Amazon. I hope so. Somebody needs to compete with Amazon. So that's really exciting. Well, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Oh, it's
so neat.
We've learned so much. And of course, we always end with best thing we learned this week. So I'm going to do a simple one, though I keep talking about coral, so this is also related to coral, which is that there's a couple of guys in the Bahamas decided to start growing coral. They just won one of the, I think it's like £1 million environmental grant from Prince Harry. I forget exactly. He offered some environmental grants, but they devised some tanks. Then they say coral can grow 50 times faster in these tanks. And I looked a little bit into it, and what they're actually trying to do is they're growing reefs for profit. So if a coral reef was disturbed somewhere, I think you could hire these guys, and within a certain amount of months, they can basically put in a reef that, if conditions are good, will start to grow. But also what they can do in these testing tanks is they can slowly increase the heat or the acidity. And so they're trying to also develop corals that might be able to survive all the horrible changes we're making to the ocean.
Wow, that's cool too. So I was reading a little bit, or actually I guess I saw a video about the garment industry's efforts to help with climate change and global warming, and just having smaller carbon footprints. So they were saying that a single cotton shirt takes about 2.5 to 3 years of the water one person drinks to make a single shirt. Takes that much water. So, and that 85% of our garments end up in landfill. So there's all kinds of things happening. There's wonderful designers who are taking pre-used fabrics from different things and making wonderful outfits and designer outfits and just regular outfits out of them. And then the other thing I was reading, which was really cool, is that there are people making products out of waste products like apples. There's apple leather shoes.
Oh,
And they have coconut interior soles, and they are using eucalyptus and sugarcane to make fabrics, and it's pretty amazing. It's really cool.
that's cool. You could do like a new Charlie Chaplin too, where he eats his shoes, but it's fine because it's actually apple. And
Right. I don't, yeah, good thought, Elizabeth.
thank you.
I don't think it's quite edible by that point, but but I thought that was cool.
That's cool. I've also heard they use, they're starting to use fungus to like actually create clothing.
That's really cool and kind of frightening.
Yeah, and I would be concerned that some people might be allergic to that.
I'd be concerned that it would infiltrate and become part of us somehow internally, and who knows?
And we would have spores coming out of our ears.
Exactly. Fungus is a little this, and it stays out of my body.
Yeah.
So.
And your turn.
I'm afraid I'm going to stay on the Kickstarter road here, just because our last Kickstarter had 998 backers. So
Wow.
it was double what we'd ever done before for our graphic novels. And so we've been sending out literally twice as many packages. So I actually said, oh, USPS can come pick up my 150 packages, and I don't have to go to the post office and make my local small post office clerks crazy with scanning these things in. So what I discovered is that they pick up late in the day, and then, you can check. I use a third party postage processing called Pirate Ship. And so they list when things are in transit or delivered and all that good stuff. But I discovered at my local, if it arrives late, those 150 packages don't get scanned there, but get shipped off to a distribution center. And it'll take an additional 24 to 48 hours for it to be scanned and then go out. So for those who are doing massive package things, don't freak out if the package isn't, scanned in for 24, 48 hours, because it's probably gone to one of either the Santa Clara distribution center or somewhere else. If you're in LA, and I'm sure everyone else has the same issue, but a different distribution center.
I guess that's what I was going to say. I guess that's why sometimes when you order something, you'll see that it's out for processing, but it takes forever to show up on any kind of tracking system.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what's happening.
Yeah. Sometimes that happens because they'll get a massive amount of packages in, and apparently my small local office isn't allowed to scan things in after a certain time, and so it goes immediately. That's all trucked to the Santa Clarita distribution center, because I'm in Los Angeles. So yeah, it goes up to Santa Clarita, and then it gets scanned there in 24, 48 hours. And sometimes it takes longer. So you just kind of have to wait, because I did have one package that just was like, I saw it hadn't been scanned in yet, and I knew it was there. And I said, well, you always got to give it at least a couple weeks. And then a few days later, it got scanned in. So it's fine.
Wow.
But you just, you got to keep track of these things. But it was really good to know. And then I went in, when I saw what was going on, I went in and I actually talked to them. They said, yeah, it went straight to Santa Clarita. And we're like, oh, okay, that's fine. That's all good. As long as it's moving out there. So it was good knowledge to have.
Yeah. If you're sending things and it's easy to freak out. I noticed last summer I would get just announcements that something had been delivered, and it wasn't actually delivered for 2 days. Like quite a few times. And the first few times I was freaking out and contacting them, and then I just realized, oh, they just relax. It'll be there. So of course, we want to thank you so much for talking to us again. It's been really interesting. I can't wait to hear that. I love radio dramas. So I'm really excited about this one. And also thank you, Maria and Alex Korolov, for being our directors and our editors. We couldn't do it without you.
We couldn't. And we want to thank all of you for coming by and listening to this episode. It was so lovely to have Madeleine with us. And if you liked it, please let us know. Give us some comments, like it, hit the like button. And so you won't miss any upcoming episodes, be sure to subscribe to the channel. We have some great guests coming in soon. Not that Madeleine isn't great, but ongoing great guests. And check out our Patreon page and help MetaStellar continue to offer original fiction for all of us to read. The entire MetaStellar staff it's all run by volunteers, so none of the money goes to any of us, it just goes to the writers to keep bringing us original, fabulous fiction. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Thank you, bye.